For all the native English speakers out there, I want you to consider for a moment the bizarre nature of the verb get. You might not be aware that there is anything strange about this verb. It might be something you've never considered. Let me give you an idea of what I mean. While teaching advanced English in South America, I would often start the semester with an icebreaker. I would ask my students how comfortable they were using the verb get in conversation. This question was usually met with glances of trepidation, sometimes nervous laughter, and other times bewilderment. Why would this question get such a response? Well, look at the question I just asked. Why would this get such a response? This is the same verb we use to get something from the store. To get the joke, to get to work on time, or to get your degree. In the context of my question, you could say that the verb get is standing in for the verb receive. Get has an incredible amount of synonyms in the English language. So many, in fact, that I would tell my classes that get was more like a tool that can allow you to say so many different things in the language. In fact, becoming comfortable with using get in conversation is one of the last things native Spanish speakers learn on their road to English fluency. As an example of the malleable nature of the verb get, I would tell the class a story about what I did the day before using the verb get in every sentence in the simple past. I got up at 7. I got out of bed. I got a shower. I got my clothes on and got some coffee. I got out of the house at 8:30 and got the train to work. I got to work late. I got some flack from the boss, but I got to see some old workmates that I hadn't seen in a while. I got my team together for a meeting. We got our client on the phone, and after the conversation, we got her signature on the deal. I got out of work at 4:30. The train was late, so I got a taxi. I got home at 5. I got some dinner. I got a chance to relax. I got into bed, and I got some sleep. I want to highlight here the amazing utility of the verb get in English. My students feel a little uneasy when using this verb because look at all the verbs that the verb get can stand in for in my story. Wake up, exit, leave, take, put on, drink, make, arrive, receive, gather, connect, contact, have the opportunity to, eat, enter, go to sleep. The native English speaker is usually not aware of the uniqueness of a verb that can replace all of these other verbs in the language. In fact, in all of its forms, get has over 100 different meanings in English. This is difficult for my native Spanish-speaking English students, in part because there doesn't exist a catch-all verb that can approximate all these different meanings in Spanish. You would need to say the specific verb. What I mean by this is, if you're going to the store to get some chips, you're going to the store to buy some chips in Spanish. If you're getting dinner ready, you're making dinner. If you're getting a scholarship, you're receiving a scholarship. So how is this discussion about native Spanish speakers' difficulty with the verb get relevant to native English-speaking learners of Spanish? Because we want to use this verb all the time in English, we tend to want to translate it into all the Spanish sentences we construct. This is a dead end. We can't do this. We must think about using the specific verb and not rely on this all-encompassing English verb, get. get rid of this word, it's best for your Spanish in the long run. And over time, and with patience, you start to notice that the verb get starts to diminish in your Spanish translations. However, after you reach a certain advanced level in Spanish, get starts to reappear in not so obvious ways. And this is the focus of this video. It's not that I want you to stop using the verb get entirely in your translations. It's that I want you to start using get if it's a specific form of get. Let me explain. Grammarians identify three main grammatical patterns for get: the lexical get, the get passive, and the causative get. We are going to focus on the everyday usage patterns of get. You could say there are 5 common patterns of get in English: the non-predicative lexical get, the phrasal get, the get passive, the causative get, and the get plus past participle change of state get. We will not look at the causative get in this video. See my video on the Spanish subjunctive for more details on the causative get. I also really want to point out that I don't want you to allow yourself to be confused by technical grammatical jargon. I will try and simplify these grammatical terms as we move along in the video. It's important to remember that these 5 categories are not accepted categories by grammarians. I believe creating these categories offer you the best opportunity to finally understand how get can be translated into your Spanish. Without getting too technical here, a non-predicative lexical verb is best thought of as a basic verb, a verb that carries the primary meaning of a sentence, expressing an action, events, or states of being. The lexical verb, in its non-predicative lexical verb form, stands alone, meaning it's not part of a larger grammatical structure. I want you to think of the predicative lexical get as get standing alone, by itself. Of the 4 forms of get we will look at in this video, this is the only form that is not combined with another word to create its meaning. That is, later we will look at other forms of get that must take another word to carry its full meaning. So I will refer to this get as the stand-alone get. There are over 24 different meanings for get in its stand-alone, non-predicative lexical form. And this is what creates such confusion from both sides. The native English-speaking learner of Spanish that wants to insert the stand-alone English get into all kinds of Spanish translations, and the native Spanish-speaking learners of English trying to grasp a verb that has over 24 different meanings in the language they are learning. To show you what I mean about the stand-alone get, let's look at some sentences from my earlier story. I got a cup of coffee, and we got her signature. See how it's just get without any other connecting words that create its meaning? The stand-alone get is carrying the meaning of the action by itself, without any help. These stand-alone non-predicative lexical examples of get can be replaced by other stand-alone verbs: made, drank, obtained, attained, received. The stand-alone get cannot be translated into your Spanish. Again, this is because there is not a verb in Spanish that encapsulates all the different meanings. This is what I mean by being very specific with your choice of verb. I'm sure many of you very early on in your Spanish learning looked up the verb get in an English to Spanish dictionary and saw the verb conseguir. I wanted to use the verb conseguir all the time at first, because the verb get is such a common verb in my everyday conversations. Up to that point in my Spanish learning, I hadn't realized yet that just because a word appeared in the dictionary as a translation of the English get, it didn't mean it could cover the multitude of meanings that get has in English. You learn very quickly that the verb conseguir has a very specific meaning of the English verb get, something more like to obtain or to attain something. Conseguí mi licencia para manejar. But good luck trying to use conseguir with getting chips from the shop or getting dinner. That would sound ridiculous in Spanish. I'd be willing to bet that many Spanish learners make this same mistake at first, and many don't become aware of this until years later. I hope for many of you, this video will be an inflection point with regards to trying to translate the standalone get into your Spanish. My advice to you is, never do it. The next form of get we will discuss is called the phrasal get. The phrasal get is when get combines with a small word called a particle. Up, down, in, out, etc. The two words together make a single action or idiomatic meaning. The particle changes the meaning of the phrasal get. He got out of the house quickly would make no sense without the particle. So while the standalone get has a plethora of possible meanings, the phrasal get has many, many more. Some sources state as many as 40 to 50 possible meanings exist, but the number of commonly used meanings is around 25. Phrasal verbs are a nightmare for Spanish-speaking learners of English, and the get phrasal is notorious in English learning circles because of its seemingly endless number of meanings. This should tell us something about trying to translate it into Spanish. Don't waste your time. The phrasal get cannot be translated into Spanish. Spanish usually expresses the same idea with a single verb, not a combination like get plus a particle. Returning to the story earlier in the video where I used the verb get in every sentence, I want you to see that every form of get in my story was either the standalone get or the phrasal get. This means that for every example of get that I use, I need to think about the most obvious verb that expresses the action in Spanish and use it. Don't waste your time trying to translate the word get in its standalone form or phrasal form into your Spanish. As you can see, I'm replacing get in the story with a more specific verb that describes the action. This is exactly what you do in your translations. Think of the standalone non-predicative get and the phrasal get as being too vague to use in your Spanish translations. They will not be precise enough. The less you think about the standalone get and the phrasal get, the better for your Spanish in the long run. However, this doesn't mean that all forms of get can't be considered in your translations. Join me in part 2, where we will discuss what kinds of get might start to appear in your Spanish.